Koroviev took a 7 of spades from the desk drawer, offered it to Margarita, and asked her to mark one of the pips with her fingernail. Margarita marked the one in the upper right-hand corner. Hella hid the card under a pillow, crying. Ready. Azazello, who was sitting with his back to the pillow, drew a black automatic from the pocket of his tailcoat trousers, put the muzzle over his shoulder, and, without turning towards the bed, fired, provoking a merry fright in Margarita. The 7 was taken from under the bullet-pierced pillow. The pip marked by Margarita had a hole in it. "I wouldn't want to meet you when you're carrying a gun," Margarita said, casting coquettish glances at Azazello. She had a passion for anyone who did something top-notch. "Precious queen," squeaked Koroviev, "I wouldn't advise anyone to meet him, even if he's not carrying a gun." "I give you my word of honor as an ex-choir master and presenter that no one would congratulate the one doing the meeting." The cat sat scowling throughout the shooting trial, and suddenly announced, "I undertake to beat the record with the 7. Azazello growled out something in reply to that. But the cat was stubborn, and demanded not 1 but 2 guns. Azazello took a second gun from the second back pocket of his trousers and, twisting his mouth disdainfully, handed it to the braggart together with the first. Two pips were marked on the 7. The cat made lengthy preparations, turning his back to the pillow. Margarita sat with her fingers in her ears and looked at the owl dozing on the mantelpiece. The cat fired both guns, after which Hella shrieked at once, the owl fell dead from the mantelpiece, and the smashed clock stopped. Hella, whose hand was all bloody, clutched at the cat's fur with a howl, and he clutched her hair in retaliation, and the two got tangled into a ball and rolled on the floor. One of the goblets fell from the table and broke. "Pull this rabid hellion off me," wailed the cat, fighting off Hella, who was sitting astride him. The combatants were separated, and Koroviev blew on Hella's bullet-pierced finger and it mended. "I can't shoot when someone's talking at my elbow," shouted Behemoth, trying to stick in place a huge clump of fur pulled from his back. "I'll bet," said Woland, smiling to Margarita, "that he did this stunt on purpose." "He's not a bad shot." Hella and the cat made peace and, as a sign of their reconciliation, exchanged kisses. The card was taken from under the pillow and checked. Not a single pip had been hit, except for the one shot through by Azazello. That can't be, insisted the cat, holding the card up to the light of the candelabra. The merry supper went on. The candles guttered in the candelabra, the dry, fragrant warmth of the fireplace spread waves over the room. After eating, Margarita was enveloped in a feeling of bliss. She watched the blue-gray smoke rings from Azazello's cigar float into the fireplace, while the cat caught them on the tip of a sword. She did not want to go anywhere, though according to her reckoning it was already late. By all tokens, it was getting on towards 6 in the morning. Taking advantage of a pause, Margarita turned to Woland and said timidly, "I suppose it's time for me, it's late." "What's your hurry?" asked Woland, politely but a bit dryly. The rest kept silent, pretending to be occupied with the smoke rings. "Yes, it's time," Margarita repeated, quite embarrassed by it, and looked around as if searching for some cape or cloak. She was suddenly embarrassed by her nakedness. She got up from the table. Woland silently took his worn-out and greasy dressing gown from the bed, and Korovia threw it over Margarita's shoulders. "I thank you, monsieur," Margarita said barely audibly, and looked questioningly at Woland. In reply, he smiled at her courteously and indifferently. Black anguish somehow surged up all at once in Margarita's heart. She felt herself deceived. No rewards would be offered her for all her services at the ball, apparently, just as no one was detaining her. And yet it was perfectly clear to her that she had nowhere to go. The fleeting thought of having to return to her house provoked an inward burst of despair in her. Should she ask, as Azazello had temptingly advised in the Alexandrovsky garden? No, not for anything, she said to herself. "Goodbye, monsieur," she said aloud, and thought, "I must just get out of here, and then I'll go to the river and drown myself." "Sit down now," Woland suddenly said imperiously. Margarita changed countenance and sat down. "Perhaps you want to say something before you leave?" "No, nothing, monsieur," Margarita answered proudly, "except that if you still need me, I'm willing and ready to do anything you wish." "I'm not tired in the least, and I had a very good time at the ball."